And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Cate Chassé, who's had a lifetime of UFO and paranormal experiences, including encountering beings and witnessing 8 types of crafts. Cate, thanks for joining me and welcome.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This is a real pleasure.
Well, the pleasure is all ours. And if you don't mind, Cate, let's start with your very first contact.
Okay. It was in 1969. I was 6 years old, so you can do the math. um, I had just watched my dog get hit by a car, and that was the summer in 69. And then in September of that year, I think just the first week into school, I think I was just going into kindergarten. I was waiting for my bus, and I started thinking about how I had watched my dog die and the whole concept of death and so on. And it was very overwhelming for me. Like, just this, I couldn't understand this concept of dying. And what do you mean I will cease to exist one day? Like, it was really disturbing me. So I was like thinking about this and feeling really bothered about it and standing there waiting for my bus. And I'm in a little foyer. Um, it's about 5 by 5. So there's the outside door and then sort of an inside door into the rest of the house. And I'm standing there, and it's about, so 9 feet high, 5 by 5. And I'm telling you the dimensions of this because I um, felt this presence enter the room, and it was physical feeling against my body. Like, it felt like this, and it was what I describe as non-corporeal. Like, I had no body, but it was definitely a physical sensation that I felt. So it kind of entered the space, and it felt like it was maybe way too big for the space and was trying to cram itself in. And I could feel this pressure pushing up against me. And and then I heard a voice, and I heard it outside of my head. So it wasn't in my head. It was from this presence. All it said in a sort of a deep baritone voice was, it said, "Death does not exist." And I heard the voice, and then the presence just sort of receded away from me. So I started leaving the space, and the pressure released on me. Um, and of course, at the time, at 6 years old, I didn't had no clue what this was. Wasn't thinking aliens or anything like that. I thought, oh, this must be God. God came and told me that death does not exist. So that it was a very quick encounter, but it was incredibly profound. It really affected me. From that point on, I felt this sort of huge need to understand. So, um, you know, in school, I would always gravitate towards the mysterious and trying to figure out what this is. Religion, even. My parents were kind of agnostic. Um, my grandmother was very religious, so I had a bit of exposure. So I just didn't know what this was, but I felt continuously compelled to find out. And so by the time I was 13 and really starting to read, I was reading about the paranormal and everything from like near-death experiences to ghosts, paranormal, evil. I was fascinated by that subject, like that there could be an opposite to a God, that there was evil and so on.
Well, now that you've had years to process that, do you feel it's possible it was a spirit guide or a guardian angel?
I have no idea. I mean, it's, maybe a spirit guide, a guide of some sort, maybe some sort of non-human intelligence, ET. I have no idea. So now I guess as I've matured, I'm not thinking, well, that was God I spoke to, but I mean, I'm not discounting it completely. Who knows, right? But that's it. Who knows? Like, I don't know. Um, I just know it started everything for me. It really did. Um, and it sort of propelled me along up a certain path that I couldn't really turn away from. And it was a very private path too. I never shared that with anybody. I don't think I shared that story well into my 20s. So it was a very personal um, path I was on, I guess.
Do you think you were meant to be on this path?
I think so. I think so. I mean, I think maybe we all are. But for some reason, maybe I was crying out enough in my searching. It's like, what? I don't understand it. Like, it was really bothering me. Like, it didn't make any sense that I would cease to exist anymore. It didn't work in my head. And you know, so I think the anguish, who knows, maybe that's what called it. You know, I don't really know, but I think perhaps maybe we're all being called, possibly.
Ceasing to exist is something that I still find hard to grapple with. But then I think, well, to me, that's the worst that it could possibly be, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't like that though. Like I'm like, even now I'm like, no, that would really suck.
Well, I mean, it's better than, I mean,
It's
I
better
think,
than
and better than, suffering in hell and torture for eternity.
true. Yes. It's true. Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, let's fast forward to 1997 when you had another significant encounter.
Yeah. So, um, I had my first sighting in 93, or sorry, 1992. So just to put that in context, the sighting I had in 92 was in Ottawa. So at this point, I'm living in downtown Toronto and I have my own place. And I was sharing with somebody, but they had moved out. So I had the place to myself. So it was like one of those, it was very, very old building, like 80 at the time, 80 years old. And so it was basically the apartment was just a one big long apartment with rooms going off the long, long, long hallway. And so my bedroom was at one end, and there was a bathroom at the far end of the hallway. So 3 o'clock in the morning, I get up. I have to go to the bathroom, so I don't turn on any lights. I walk down the long hallway, go into the bathroom, do my business. Turn on the light. Sorry, do my business. Turn off the light, and about a foot and a half in front of me is a light being. A being that is completely made of light, about 5'10". I got the sense that it was male. It looked humanoid in every sense, except there were no defining features. All it was light, and it was the type of light that you see in a star, like extremely bright and warm. Um, and it was just standing there, and I saw it. I didn't experience fear or anything, but my body completely gave out and I collapsed to the floor, but I didn't lose consciousness. I just fell to the floor. Like I just couldn't hold myself up anymore. It was the strangest thing. And I didn't even have that surge of fear. I didn't even have time. I just completely collapsed. Excuse me. And when I looked up, it was gone.
Do you think your body collapsed because it couldn't handle the frequency of the being?
Possibly, possibly. I don't know. It was very close too. It was so shocking. Um, so I'm not sure if it was the frequency of the being or just shock beyond even just regular shock, is like complete collapse. So, I didn't get that, that rush of fear you get. I didn't even have time to experience that. So I'm not sure what that was. I've never seen the being again. Again, never told this to anybody. I mean, who do you tell? This back then, especially, there was just nowhere to go to talk about this kind of thing. So I just kept it to myself for years, and I think I talked about that story maybe sometime in 2021, something like that, for the first time.
Well, too bad it didn't speak to you because it may have been the same being
Yeah,
that you were with many years before.
possibly. Yeah. But I guess my reaction maybe it was like, "Oh boy, I better get out of here before, she has a heart attack or something." Yeah. So, and I had already had sightings, um, and, was open to the idea, but that kind of, it's just that sort of what I've heard a lot of people talk about ontological shock. It's just so shocking that maybe you're just not prepared for it at all. It's so outside of our reality.
I think there's talk out there why UFOs and ETs are not revealed to us because we couldn't handle it. Do you think that's possibly true due to your own reaction?
Yeah. I one thing I thought of at the time was it was testing me or as a test subject. So as something, let's see how sort of your average human would respond. And it, didn't respond well. Um, that was 97. 20 years now have gone by almost. Oh, wait a minute. Almost whatever. I can't do the math, but a long time has passed since that happened, and a lot of things have happened. There's been, the hearings and so on, and people coming forward, and I've had way more sightings. Many more people have had sightings. It's now becoming almost mainstream. So maybe it was. Let's test it out. See where the humans are at with this subject. Just some random human who's, even slightly open to this, still not ready. Maybe now we are. But it is something to talk about the readiness of humanity. It's shocking.
If you encountered that being again, do you think you would react the same way?
I hope not. Um, I also make the request, if, in my head kind of thing, I'd prefer it if you actually approach me in daylight, in the daytime. I mean, we are, um, kind of, we have our primal instincts, and at nighttime you tend to be a little bit more spooked as well. So I would hope I'd be better prepared, but I think part of it also was there was no warning. It was just like poof there, It's like, well, like, can you like lead up a little bit, like sort of announce your presence, and slowly, test the waters, you know. So I think a lot of it is that shock factor. I thought I was alone, and then all of a sudden you are not, So and you've that primal fear sets in, I guess. I don't know. Or it was the frequency. Who knows?
Well, you make a lot of sense because I've walked in the hallway in my own house and not expecting a family member to be there and, you know, turn around
Yeah.
and there they are and you're kind of shocked.
Yeah, I turned off the light. Poof, it's there, I mean, I didn't see it when the light was on, so I don't know. Um, did it just appear just as I turned off the light, or was it there and I just in the light you couldn't see it? I don't know.
Well, why do you think it appeared to you
Ah,
and not somebody else?
I mean, I've seen, like I said in my little bio, I've seen many, many different types of craft. And why? Why am I seeing them? And there's people out there who are like, I really want to see something. I really, really, really want to see something, and they don't. And I'm just going about my day. Some are daytime sightings, some are nighttime sightings. It's just random, and they happen all the time. So I'm not sure what it is, what draws it the phenomenon to some people and not others. Um, I don't know. Background, like openness, empathy levels, possibly. I'm not sure.
We just met, 20 minutes ago, so I don't know much about you, but do you think it's possible that you were an ET before this incarnation?
I I don't know. Like I'm sort of on the fence about reincarnation. Um, and so whether I lived before, I've had, no memories or anything like that. I did get regressed once to look for a past life. And in the regression, um, the regression took about 2 hours, and it felt like, I don't know, 5 minutes had gone by. And she had regressed me, go further back and further back to, you know, picture yourself in your mother's womb, so on, and going further back. And then picture the moment, where are you right before your conception? And so what I found is I found myself in a cavern under the ground, with kind of like a rust-colored stone walls in this very large cavern. And I'm in a capsule, and the capsule it looks like it's almost made of wood, and it's got a window in front of it. So it's just like a capsule that encapsulates me completely. I'm standing up, and there's just a glass front that's open. And then all of a sudden, the capsule starts to turn, and I start to ascend up through the earth, and it comes up through the earth into my backyard, where in the house that I grew up in. Uh, and the capsule door opened, the glass opened, and then the wood part that was part of the door opened, and I stepped out, and that's my memory. So after that, I thought, well, maybe, who knows? Like, that feels like I was somewhere in some sort of stasis, maybe. Was I transported here from somewhere else? I don't know. Like, you know, you're never really given any explanations. You just have these visuals, and feelings, but you don't get sort of someone reciting like in a movie, you know,
Mhm.
that where you came from. And so I'd probably have to delve into it further, but I guess a part of me worries about, injection of false memories and so on, being regressed, going through hypnotherapy. I worry about false memories. I don't want to, sort of carry a memory that actually doesn't even belong to me, and have a trauma around it that maybe doesn't even belong to me. So I guess I'm a little skeptical of it. I know there's some very good hypnotists out there, but I mean, I've spent so much time researching ufology and following this. I mean, it became an obsession after my sighting in 92. It was a complete obsession for years and years and years, right? So my whole brain is filled with this kind of stuff. I don't know how much did I create that scenario of, you know, waking up in this cavern and, you know, in a capsule. Like, did I make that up? I don't know. I just don't, I'm a little skeptical about even my own, memory and um, own hypnotherapy. So,
When you say you don't want to have a false memory, at first it kind of sounds like it was somebody else's memory that implanted into you, but I'm assuming you mean you just don't want something
well,
that's imagination.
yeah, exactly. Like, or someone leading you on, oh, are you on a examining table? Are you inside of a spaceship? That kind of thing. I know a good hypnotherapist won't lead the patient or whatever. But how much, because I've got all this UFO lore in me now. eh, how much is that my imagination? I don't know. Like the one regression session that I had, it felt like I was just observing what was going on, but was I partially creating that? I don't know, right? So I guess I don't trust it 100%. And so, if someone filled my head with, an abduction scenario or something, like, I don't know if I really want to have that. Even if it did happen to me, I don't know if I want to remember that. So I guess there's part of me that's a little, I guess, a little nervous about it.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. And, sometimes when I'm lying in bed before I go to sleep, I'll close my eyes and all kinds of images will start flooding in. Even while I'm there, I'm thinking, is this some past life memory or am I just making up something or what?
I get that too, and I have attributed to remote viewing, but uncontrolled remote viewing. Like I'm just because I'll see all kinds of things, scenarios, sometimes violent, um, uh, and sometimes not, just sometimes very mundane. But it's like a movie playing out, but I'm wide awake. Um, so I wonder if that's almost like you're just seeing remote viewing or just seeing into other people's lives without much control. Like you're not targeting something, you're just sort of randomly picking up what's out there, possibly.
What about your dreams? Do you have strange dreams a lot?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. You know, I used to have very strange dreams as a child. Um, you know, some of these standard ones like flying dreams, um, people chasing after you, that sort of thing. Um, I had a dream once, I was about 12 or 13, and there were demons flying around so I was on the second floor of our house, um, and the demons were flying around the house trying to get at me, but they couldn't for some reason. Things like that. In a dream, I once had what I call a psychic attack, where some sort of, again, demon in quotes, demonic type entity or being tried to steal my soul. Um, so yeah, the so I've had dreams like that, and then after my sighting, I had a lot of dreams encountering aliens.
Hmm.
Um, I dreamt of an alien that was absolutely beautiful. It was the alien was black from head to toe, humanoid looking, tall, about 5'9", 5'10", and its skin was like the skin of a killer whale, sort of shiny, and it had no features really, just a blank face, um, no eyes, nothing. It was just black from head to toe, and it touched me, and it sent energy throughout my body, a very strong surge of energy. Um, I've had the dreams where the skies are filled with different types of UFOs. Um, yeah, there's so many that it's hard to. I guess I have different categories. So I have the sort of demonic ones, the alien ones, and I've encountered spiritual figures. I've healed people in dreams. I've created things out of nothing. Like had a dream once where I was teaching an auditorium full of people how to manifest a strawberry, but the strawberry that I manifested was like, you know, 2 feet in diameter. This is massive strawberry that tasted and felt like a strawberry, like it was a real thing. And I taught I was teaching this audience how to manifest something like that. So all kinds of strange dreams like that.
Do you dream of people you've never met in real life?
Absolutely, all the time. Aliens, a lot of aliens. I've been on uh, in my dreams, different planets. Where I've seen aliens that have sort of ridges, sort of coming down, and heavy brows and ridges coming down, quite tall, like you know, 7 feet tall, 8 feet tall type aliens. Um, yeah. Yeah, lots of people. I'll see strange faces. Uh, Sometimes I have dreams of the future. Like I'll see a strange, like a face I've never seen before, and then I'll go to watch a new release movie, and that face pops up on the screen, identical to what I've seen the night before. So I'm seeing the future, but it's a mundane future of a movie. It's not like, oh, I'm seeing a plane crash or anything. So, or it's a lottery number, so it's not helpful in that way. But it does sort of suggest that, well, like a lot of people, that psychic ability coming through. I've had a dream once when I was probably 3 or 4 years old, possibly four. I was in a crib, and I was in the crib. It was my brother's crib, and I was in there because we had guests staying, and rooms were being moved around, and so I was in this crib, and so I couldn't get out. Or I didn't try to, anyways. But I was really thirsty, and I remembered in the fridge there was a bowl of purple grapes or red grapes in the fridge, and seedless red grapes, and they were really good and juicy. And I woke up in the middle of the night feeling really thirsty and thought of those red grapes. And in my memory, and so this could have been a dream, but this is a memory, not a dream. I remember the bowl sort of manifesting over me. I'm lying down and it's over me, just high enough so that my hands can go and pick the grapes and eat them. And so I have that memory, likely a dream, but yeah. So I don't know.
Well, I recently had a UFO contactee that mentioned that he touched an alien. I think it was like as if his consciousness was pulled out of his body and he was having contact with the alien. But the point is that he said the alien skin felt like dolphin's skin.
I
And
saw that. Sorry, go ahead.
it's okay. So when you said this one was like whale skin, it reminded me of that.
Yep. And I saw your headline of that one. I think that you had interviewed, um, and I thought, wow, that's wild, because I didn't actually touch this alien skin, but it had that look, like sort of kind of rubbery look of a killer whale, and shiny and very smooth. Um, so when I came across that one of your videos, I thought that's amazing. But this person actually touched it, and I imagined if I touched the alien that I saw, it would have felt like a killer whale, but I never did.
Like you said, most people wish they could at least see one UFO, and you're able to not only see them, but identify all these different types of crafts. So you must be seeing them up close because a lot of times they just look like lights in the sky.
Yeah,
Can you break down the eight different types? Is it eight or
absolutely.
six? Eight?
Eight
Eight
different
types of
types.
crafts you've seen?
Yeah, yeah. And a couple of them I've seen with other people. Most I've seen alone. So the very first one I saw was in 92, was fall, November 92. I was out for a walk with two guys. One was my roommate and his best friend. And I'm walking between them, and I see to uh, the east of me, about 500 feet up and about 500 feet away, I see a football shaped metallic, like dark gray metallic shaped craft. It had, so the craft was what I describe as the size of two 747s, so sort of one on top of each other. So like it had mass to it, and it was huge, and it was close.
Yeah.
And it had these lights going around it, maybe a foot and a half diameter lights, sort of along the center of it, like the center of the football. But they were very muted, so they weren't emanating really. They were just sort of illuminating just the circle. And they were a little muted as well. And they went into this pattern, red, yellow, green, blue, all the way around. And the craft, there was no noise. There was a low ceiling and there was snow on the ground. So it was a kind of hazy night. We were in a park, and in Ottawa, this was in Ottawa, the lighting there is that they use the orange lighting, not the white lighting, um, to illuminate the park area. So there's like sort of this slight orange glow in the air, and because there's like heavy cloud, um, it's quite bright out. There's snow on the ground, and so it's quite bright out for 11 o'clock at night. And the craft is there, there's no sound, and then it just disappears. And it reappears in the western sky. Same position, but just opposite. Then it disappears from there and reappears in the eastern sky, and then just disappears after that. So I'm walking along, watching this, seeing this. It all happened really quickly. And I could feel I literally could feel, it felt like, I don't know if you've ever fainted before. I fainted once in my life, or almost fainted once in my life. And everything sort of comes in like this, like blackness comes in, and like literally like in the movies. Well, this felt like a fog was coming down on me. Like my brain didn't want to accept it. But then my roommate said, he's like, did anybody just see that? I'm like, oh my God, you saw that? That was real? Like, I just didn't even think it was real. The other guy, he didn't see anything at all. He missed the whole thing and he was mad. Like, why didn't you say something? But we were both, I guess, in sort of shock, and it happened so quickly. So that was very beneficial for me to have somebody who actually saw it with me, because then I realized I wasn't crazy and I had somebody who could back me up, you know. So that was an incredibly life-altering experience. That started everything. So in 90, like before that, I had belief, and it's like, oh yeah, yeah, of course there's life out in the universe, and yeah, it's possible that they could figure out a way to get here. Um, you know, and at the time I was making the assumption this was extraterrestrial of some sort. It wasn't ours. It was clear it wasn't ours, and in my mind, anyways. And that's when the dream started. That's when the obsession started. I mean, it was just insane. Like it was just nuts. Um, and it's that obsession is I've tried to ditch it. And I did after 90 in 1998. I started back in school. I went back to school full time, got my master's, and then started a career. So got very busy. So I didn't research it that much. Still thinking about it, still having strange dreams, but was trying to put it aside. But and then in 2017, December 2017, with the New York Times article coming out and the WikiLeaks and all that, it started me back in on it. you know.
So after 92, you had a giant lapse in time until you saw the next one?
Well, I saw another type of UAP. That's the only way to describe it. In '93, the summer of '93, and then I saw that light being in '97, and then nothing until 2021. So there was a good chunk of time that I got busy. You know, wasn't out going out much at night or paying attention, and I didn't want to. I was trying to shut it down. Because it got to the point where it was kind of screwing me up, right?
What do you mean by
Um,
that, screwing you up?
well, the type of obsession, like I talked about it all the time, and I couldn't get it out of my head, and it gave me dreams and nightmares, and my friends, most of them didn't believe me. I mean, luckily, I had my mom and my stepdad believe me, because my stepdad, he worked at Canadian Forces Station Alert, which is the farthest. It's farthest northern point in Canada. He was monitoring the Russians for NORAD. And, when I told him the story about what I had seen, he's like, "Oh yeah, we call those bogeys," and they used to see them all the time. He said there was always three types of craft they would see: commercial airlines, occasionally the Russians, the Soviets at the time, making incursions into NORAD airspace, and then the bogies, the stuff that they didn't know what they were. They'd sometimes scramble jets from the States to take a look and see what they were, but they would never find anything. They'd never be able to determine anything, as far as he knew.
All right, so craft number one is football shaped,
Football shaped.
which probably means American or Canadian football, not the
Yes,
British soccer ball.
that's right.
All right, so that's number one. Number two, what's the next shape or type of
Orb,
craft you've seen? An orb, like an
an
energy
orb.
orb?
I think. So I'll tell you what we saw. So I was on a beach at night around the campfire. And there was another campfire with another group of people. I was there with my boyfriend, and so there might have been 7 to 10 people on the beach at the time. It's maybe 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. Beautiful night. All we see is stars in the sky, and it's up north on in a Canadian provincial park. So nothing around for miles, and in the direction that what we saw, there was nothing. Like there's no civilization. It just goes all the way up to the North Pole. Nothing there. So it's just wilderness. And I saw a star, what looked like Venus, so bright, like super, like even brighter than Venus. So a very, very bright star. Then I saw another one, and they just started appearing. And there was in the end, there was 14, 15 of them. And then they just started dancing, what I call dancing around. I call them my dancing stars. Like we couldn't figure out what it was, but we watched these things for, I don't know, about 20 minutes, maybe even half an hour. And the other people saw it too. And we all just sort of watched this show of 14, what looked like 14 very, very, very bright stars just dancing around the sky. And then one by one, after about 20 minutes, they started to disappear. That was it. That was the sighting. So were they orbs? I mean, they weren't drones. I mean, that was 93, right? So, and they looked to be hard. I mean, it's hard to tell if they were in space or if they were just really high up. And they were just far enough away that we could see them in a good way. So like we didn't have to look up. We just sort of looked forward and we saw this display of dancing stars. So that was the second type. The third type, let me get these in the right order. So the third type was a sphere, and this was probably 2022, May. I can't remember the exact time. And so I was sitting on my balcony. It was mid-afternoon. I'm reading a book, and I look up and I see what looks like at first from really far away, like something's coming towards my my condo, and it looks like a balloon. But then it gets up close and it passes within maybe 300 feet of my condo. So, and my condo faces sort of southwest, or no, sorry, southeast. And the winds come from the west, and they were coming from the west that day. And this thing that first I thought was a balloon was crossing the winds. So a balloon, first of all, wouldn't be able to cross the winds. It would get pushed along with the wind. But the other thing is, as it approached, I realized it was metallic. It was like a sort of a dark metallic gray. And it had no rivets or anything. It was very smooth. And it was about 4 feet in diameter, give or take a foot. And it passed within 300 feet of my place. And it was just like, it just moved along in a very steady clip, and just flew right past. And like, of course, I didn't have my phone with me. I don't know what I would have picked up from 300 feet away, my crappy old phone. I have a new one now, but still doesn't seem to pick up much more. But so I didn't film it or anything, but it was clear that this wasn't a balloon to me. And then I had started hearing about this Mosul orb and saw pictures of it. It was very much like that.
What type of
So
orb?
the Mosul orb.
Mosul orb. I need to look that up.
Yeah, it's just that, I mean, orbs have been seen on, I guess, different bases and so on. And I mean, people dispute whether it's human technology, but there's no way this thing was propelling itself. I mean, it was completely solid sphere, so there's no internal rotaries or anything. So how is it keeping itself afloat, you know?
Would you say it was about the size of a car?
No, it was about 4 feet in diameter, 3.5 to 4 feet in diameter. So bigger than your average balloon too, but not big like a car.
So basically, it just looked like a
round circle.
Smooth, round, like a steel ball or something
Yeah,
floating by.
yeah, going by.
Hmm.
Not shiny, it was dull,
Dull.
like a dull metal. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. Is it human made? Nothing I can imagine, but I mean, maybe. So that I guess is number 3. And then that summer, so the summer of 2022, I think it was, probably July. So it all gets mixed up. I saw my fourth type. So that was a boomerang shaped, a white boomerang. Looked to be about each wing, maybe each end of the boomerang, maybe 20 feet, maybe 30, hard to tell because it was, I don't know, it looked like maybe 1,000 feet up, maybe 1,500, 2,000. It's hard to tell. It was nighttime, probably 10 o'clock at night. And at first I just saw again, like what looked like a really bright star appear, and then it got very bright, and then it it sort of faded to almost nothing, and then and as it's moving along, it brightened, and then faded, and then the third time it brightened, it morphed, like literally morphed into this boomerang shaped object, white, and it had lights at the at the point of the boomerang, and then 2 others, and it just sort of, as it morphed, it banked and just flew around like that and then flew up into space. So, and it had that, I don't know if you watch Star Trek, but it had that, it sort of looked like one of their shuttlecraft in the way it moved. It just had a smooth quality to it, no sound. And, I mean, that I think it's possible that could be something of ours. But the thing is, it started out as a really bright star and it did that morphing thing. So that to me is like, I don't know, that doesn't seem to compute as to be something of ours. Um, so that's number 4. Number 5 and number 6 happened together. And that was, it was 2 o'clock in the afternoon in the summer. And that probably was, no, actually, no, sorry, that happened in April of 2023. It was a warm enough day, but I was wearing a light jacket. So it was around April, maybe May of 2023. And I was out grocery shopping and I was in the parking lot. Like, this is how mundane it is, right? And I see this thing in a next to a really big, fluffy cloud, like really huge, fluffy cloud. It's a beautiful, clear day, but there's these great, big, huge clouds in the sky. And I mean, however far up a cloud is, it's at the base of one of them and it's just sitting there and it's like a disc shape. Maybe it looks about 30 feet in diameter and it's kind of sort of tilted a bit and it's doing this, so it's glinting in the sun. So I see it and I'm like trying to make out what it is, and I see it is a disc-shaped object, a white one. Um, and so it's hard to see against the clouds, but I could definitely see it was definitely there because it hung below it. And people are walking by me and I'm watching this for like 3, 4 minutes, and I even think to myself, I should take out my camera and take a picture, but it really, you're not going to see anything, right? So I'm like, I'm not going to catch anything. And I just kept looking at it. I thought, well, maybe if it moves, I'll do that. But it didn't move. But then there was another cloud, maybe, I don't know, 100 feet beside it, 200 feet beside it, great big, huge cloud. And out from the cloud comes a tubular shaped object. It's white. I figure about 20, 20 feet in diameter, and the tube length was about 50 feet. And it leaves the center of the cloud, of the one cloud, passes through open sky and enters the cloud where the disk is and hides itself again. And that's when I'm like kicking myself for not having my camera out, because that would have been an amazing shot, right? Um, so that's what number was that number 6? And number 7 happened at Contact in the Desert. and that was June or June of the first weekend in June 2023. And I'm sitting out on the patio in the main restaurant. It's 7 in the morning. I'm the only one out there. And I'm maybe it's 7:30, whenever that restaurant opened. I couldn't sleep. So I was having coffee and on my iPad, and out of the corner of my eye, I see a guy on the 6th floor of the hotel, and he's got a towel in his hand, and he's using the towel to make hands, like it's a small hand towel, and he's using it to make hand signals. Like, what the hell? It's like, I'm like, that is bizarre. And like, he's doing, all these things and up and down and all this for like a few minutes. And I'm like, who is he? Who is he communicating with? So I go and I look over at the mountain peak, which is just across the street. And I see this white manta ray vehicle sort of lift up off the top of the mountain and to just shoot off to the left of me, out of my view. But I literally saw it lift up and sort of tilt like that and shoot off, so I could see its shape, and it shot off. White manta ray.
That would have been awesome if you ever met up with the guy and talked to him and see
I
what
you
he
know
saw.
I never even thought of that, and I forgot about, because that freaked me out so much, seeing the manta ray thing. I don't remember if I even looked back to see if the guy was still there or if there was a connection. Like, I don't know.
Hmm. Huh.
So, and the thing is I realized when I went back in 2024 that he didn't have a line of sight to the craft. So who was he communicating with? Was there a second person who was communicating with the craft? Was that completely coincidental? Why was he doing signals? Like, why not just use a cell phone? Like, I mean, this isn't 1825 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. There's so many weird things about the phenomena, and that for me was one of the strange ones. And then, um, shoot, oh, sorry, that's number 8. That's right, that's number 8. Number 7 happened when I was in Mexico of March of 2023. I believe that's when this happened. I've been to Mexico a few times, so I get them all mixed up. But I was at the airport, and I'm standing waiting for the bus. And so I'm in it's an area where they have covered sidewalks, like two of them parallel to each other, and then buses park perpendicularly. And I'm under this covered sidewalk. And I'm standing there. There's about, I don't know, 6 or 7 other people there. And all of a sudden I look up, and I don't know, 40, 50 feet above us is this great big, huge ball, like like uh like oval, not quite football shape, but a little bit more bulbous than that, with these protruding lights, 3 or 4 protruding lights in different parts. And it's just sitting there. There's no sound whatsoever. And it's huge. Like, I don't know, 30 feet, 40 feet in diameter, only 40 feet up above us. And I'm looking at this like, and then the guy beside me, he says, "Is that a UFO?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I think that's a UFO." And then it just moved sort of over the overhang that we were on, and was just gone. And then we all just went back to what we were doing. And I actually almost forgot about it. It was a few months later, I thought, I saw a UFO in Mexico, but it was like such a non-event. Even to the person beside me is like, "Is that a UFO?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think that's a UFO." Like, so I don't know. It's strange, like the effect it has on you. Like, for example, the time that I saw that tubular thing, did it sort of suggest to me that I don't need to take out my camera, you know?
What makes you wonder if it's emitting some sort of signal, whether to erase your memory or, like you said, influence you.
Yeah. Because even the very first one, I felt like something was trying to cover it up, but yet it was such a display. So was that my own psychology, my own brain saying, you can't deal with this, is not real? Or, I mean, because the very first sighting was clearly a demonstration, you know. And I've seen the orbs again, and I can't remember at what point. I guess this was this summer. I saw them this summer a few times and quite a few times in the summer of 2023 after contact in the desert. And I see them, I'm on my balcony at night, and I skywatch at night for sure. I've seen satellites, I've seen planes, I've seen Starlink, I've seen the station, International Space Station. So I know the difference between all of these objects. To the left of me, and approximately where I saw the disk and the tubular shaped object in the sky. So like my condo is sort of not far from that shopping mall so approximately the same spot in the sky, but up what appears to be up in space. I will see these like orb like they're like look like bright stars again, but they seem to pop into existence. So they pop in and then fly away. And then another one will pop in and then fly away. So at first I'm thinking, is that Starlink? But they're coming at different type of intervals, and it's not it's not just moving along all together like Starlink does. It's a whole line. This is like something will pop in, fly away, and then another thing, and it would be like 10 or 12 of them. And then the next night at the same time, exact same time, the same thing would happen. And this happened 3 or 4 nights in a row in the summer of 2023, and then a couple of nights in a row in the summer of 2024. So Starlink wouldn't show up at the same time, first of all, and it doesn't have that pattern.
Do you think UFOs have lights for us?
It makes sense because if you wanted to be stealth, if you wanted to, you know, be secret, and if you're trying to monitor or whatever, you're going to do it quietly, silently, and dark, right? So if your lights are on and you're demonstrating all these abilities, I do believe a lot of the times they're demonstrations. The time that I saw the disc and the tube, I thought they're doing something up there. What are they doing? Like, what are these two different types of vehicles? What is there something up there? Are they working on something? What are they doing? As you know, it turns out that the portal is just that I call it a portal where I'm seeing these stars come out. It's just above where that spot is. So like, is there something there that we can't see or pick up? So I don't know.
If we go back to the guy on the balcony with the towel, do you think it's possible he was trying to get your attention?
I don't think so. It seemed like, I mean, he didn't see me see him. Like he was not looking in my direction. He was looking out. Um, so like I'm sitting like this, and it's like kind of like this, right? So he's looking that way. The vehicle that I saw was directly in front of me. So I don't think he could have seen that vehicle. So, and that I only figured out in 2024, that there's no way he could have seen the vehicle. So was he signaling to somebody else possibly who might have been signaling? I don't know. And why use a towel to signal, Like it's just weird. I'm sorry, but and I just don't get that. And so I don't know. He definitely wasn't looking at me. So is it he's afraid to communicate over phone? I don't know.
Well, since you've seen all these different types of crafts, I feel pretty sure that you've been paying attention to what's been going on lately. What kind of sense have you made from all this?
When you say what's going on lately, you mean all the orbs that are being seen?
Yeah, orbs and
And
drones and whatever else
drones. No,
is
sorry,
going
not
on.
orbs, drones. Yeah. I think it's probably a combination of now there's a bit of hysteria. People are misidentifying all kinds of things, which is easy to do. There's probably commercial and hobby drones that people are seeing and misidentifying, you know. But from what I've been hearing, it seems like there's a certain percentage of these quote drones are not behaving like normal drones, and they're quite large. Um, they're they're seen heading out towards the ocean, um, or coming out of the ocean, and that they can't shoot them down. They're not having any effect. I don't know. I think there's so many possibilities. I don't think, I mean, they're telling us it's not uh, a foreign adversary. Could it be, some sort of exercise? But why would you do that over, have exercises like that, like military exercises over civilian population? And then why do they seem as perplexed? I think it's possible it could be a cover up. It could be a way of covering up the fact that there are UAP flying around, and they're trying to confuse the whole issue by introducing drones and I don't know. I wish we knew. Just like the big balloons, the supposed Chinese balloons that were shot down, yet we don't get to see the wreckage. We don't have, they couldn't find it for the longest time. I don't know. It all seems very suspect. I guess what always comes down to for me is I'm not a believer in UFOs. Like, I know, I've seen it. I've seen too much now to not think that to think that these aren't real. Like, there's no way. For me, they're real and they're here. Whatever it is here. Whether they've always been here, whether there's multiple types of uh, civilizations that we're dealing with. It could be one that's, here, one from our future, and something from outer space for all we know. I mean, this could be sort of some sort of nexus point in the galaxy at the moment for some reason, So it seems very busy. Seems like there's a lot of people seeing a lot of things. Um, it seems to be there for me. It seems to be a lot of nuts and bolts. Yet I do have the whole consciousness aspect to it. Um, So an enigma, and it's definitely, obviously, for a lot of people, it's captured my imagination and my still obsession, But I feel like some days I'm just not getting any closer to any answers. I see all these things, but what is it leading to?
Well, the majority of your sightings were, recent compared to from the 90s. Do you feel like it's accelerating and it's going to get even more and more common?
I think so. I think we're gearing up for some sort of contact. I know a lot of people talk about disclosure. I think that's kind of happening as we speak, but I think the ultimate outcome of this isn't disclosure, but contact. And I think probably the NHI, the ETs, whatever they are, I think they're controlling a lot of it. I mean, they do. They can easily just show themselves, but I tend to think the fact that they haven't shown themselves en masse, they seem to at least have some consideration for what that effect would have on everything. I mean, I personally think, you know, our stock market is very fragile. I mean, it's little things tip it. Can you imagine something like that? I mean, and a stock market collapse could collapse our entire civilization. So I think any responsible being, if even if they have malevolent designs on us, unless they wanted to eradicate us. But I think that would have happened a long time ago. But they might want something from us, or they might want to control, or whatever. They still wouldn't collapse our civilization. So I think the move towards disclosure and contact is has to be done very delicately. I don't think it's something that can just happen. Uh, Judging by So maybe I'm not particularly brave, but my responses haven't been great to, and even with sort of a, sort of an interest in the subject, I didn't respond well to what little contact I've had. I might respond better now as time has gone on and I've acclimatized myself to the topic and to the idea. But what about all these people who haven't? Like my dad, I was telling some friends that I was doing this podcast last night at dinner, and I said, I don't know if I'm going to tell my dad. I ended up telling him because, I like to share. I don't like to not share things with my dad. He's like the most important thing in my life. So as far as family, because he's the only family I've got really. Uh, so, I want to share this with him, but I think it's just so unbelievable. And even my friends who I've told some of my, like, I can tell they're like, yeah, okay, we trust you, Kate, but they just don't, they're like, whoa, like, you know, and I don't tell them half the stuff that have happened, and half the dreams and the encounters or the weird things I've had throughout my life. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. It's just so much of it that it sort of crops up here and there as a topic changes and so on. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's happened. And at Contact in the Desert in June of 2024, I talked to Randall Mitchell, who's who's an engineer who's working on a kind of a skywatch kind of apparatus. He's looking for funding if anyone's listening and interested. But anyways, I think I told him in about 2 hours. He kept asking me about my experiences, and I kept saying, "Oh, you don't want to hear about it." Like people usually gloss over after the second sighting. They're like, "Yeah, okay, I'm bored," And I don't know if that's boredom, or or they don't believe me, or they just don't want to hear it, or whatever. But he listened for 2 hours, all of my experience, and it's the first time I think really that I've told my story in its entirety. And it actually was incredibly freeing to have somebody actually listen and actually want to hear, and then and sit there and process it, and you know and he's never, as far as I know, I don't think he's ever had a sighting. So that's kind of like that uh, that baffles me, how I know people like there's lots of people who have an obsession with this topic and they've never seen anything, and yet I've seen so much, and I can understand my obsession, but where does their obsession come from? It's wild.
Well, are you open to new friends in this subject? Because after watching this podcast, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions.
Absolutely. It's very cathartic to be able to share, and I've there's I mean, there's a lot of stuff, a lot of dreams and other sort of dream state encounters that I've had that are, I'm not sure what they are, but that at that liminal state, I've encountered things telepathically and so on. I don't know if that's real or whatever, but I'm definitely open to exploring those topics as well. Um, I really, really, I mean, since that sighting in 92, I really want to get to the bottom of this. The sighting in 92, my first thoughts were like, what are they doing here? What do you mean there's another civilization here? What do they want? You know, who are they? What do they want? I was scared. I've gotten less scared over time.
What's the best way to reach you?
Maybe on Twitter. Um, I think my handle is just my name. Or Facebook. But I don't have a website or anything. I don't do podcasts or, host podcasts or anything. So, I'm on Twitter. I can give you my Twitter handle if you want, if I can find it. Um, yeah, so it's at Cate_Chassé. So at Cate_CHASSE. So you can contact me through there. Well, I'm on Facebook as well.
Before we wrap it up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Well, I hope that I really think and I really hope that contact is imminent and that they're here to help. And I actually feel that they are. Like, I think I've had some encounters with some pretty nasty type beings in dreams, to be clear. And, but I've also had some really incredible contact in dreams with ETs or whatever you want to call them, these other beings. And they've also been like really incredible. So I guess I'm going with maybe there's some sort of battle going on, but I think good will prevail over the other side, whatever the other side is. And I think we're resilient as people. And I do think they're here to help.
Cate, thank you for your message, and thank you for sharing your life with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been quite an experience.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.